into the KOH premiere of Hypnotica from Terror Films. And with us, we have the writer and director himself, A.T. Sharma. Thank you so much for joining us to talk briefly
Mm,
about this film.
my pleasure, man. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's so much fun to see the movie premiere on KOH. So it's awesome. Love it.
Now, everyone, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat, and I will relay them to him, and we'll get some Q&A going on here. But first and foremost, how long did this, since this was such a short, it's such a small, cast and everything,
Yeah.
in very small locations, how long did it take you, how long did you have to film this? How long did it take you to film
How
this?
long did we take to shoot the
Mm-hmm.
movie? We shot it pretty quickly. We shot it in a little over 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. I would say. I think I'm trying to remember. I think it's only uh, like 13 shooting days, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did some little hiccups here and there, but nothing major. So
Yeah.
yeah, about 2 weeks, I'd say, close to 2 weeks.
And this was your first feature film that you wrote, correct?
Well, this is my first. I did some other stuff, but it wasn't like a. We didn't have like a professional crew and stuff.
Right.
I made a movie that I shot in my house, and I was the lead actor because I knew I'd show up, and I made the sandwiches, and and
Right.
my wife almost divorced me over it. But but this would be like a professional film that we actually hired people like more a crew and stuff. Yeah, I would say.
Um, so where we did an interview with you earlier this week, where you talk about where the idea of this came from. Can
Yes.
you speak a little bit more about that and how this idea, this entire idea of Hypnotica came to be? I know that you um, got inspiration from, I believe, watching another film, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, exactly right. I'm getting a little bit of noise here, so I'm going to try to turn down my volume a little bit. When you speak, I'll turn it up. I don't know if I can make it work. I'll jerry rig it. But so yeah, no, look, I saw this movie years ago about Sigmund Freud, and so in that movie there was just an actor who played Sigmund Freud, and there was an actor who played the patient. It was like really cool because I never thought that would be interesting, but obviously Sigmund Freud in itself is interesting. But then when he was going, hypnotizing the patient and going back into their psyche, into their mind, it was like so fascinating because it was like, yeah, like what is back there, and what do we remember? Where were we? Who were we? And all these things. And I thought it was really how bizarre and weird that it's all right there with just two people and it's all in their mind. So that's kind of always stayed with me. And then as I was reading more here and there, and I always wanted to do something around hypnotism because it's something we don't really understand,
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that was the genesis of it. And then there's a lot of work that's gone on in terms of regression therapy, right? In terms of, and there's a lot of regression therapy that goes on,
Mm-hmm.
and people pay money for to try to find out if they have a past life and reincarnation,
Right.
right? And so there were these. There's a professor, Ian Stevenson, who did a really was the first guy with this stuff in the '60s at the University of Virginia, and he went to India and he started researching this, and he started finding that, and this has since been borne out, that it's really mostly a lot of children between the ages of say 3 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need hypnotism, and they'll start talking about another time period
Yes.
in specific detail, Patrick, and it's like crazy, and it's like how there's no way for them to have known any of those details.
Yeah.
So he found an Indian village, and there was this little girl that was his first big case, and she remembered things. Her name was Kum, and she remembered things from uh, somewhere else, and she had all these details. So they went and they started asking around in all these villages, and they found the exact person who died 5 years earlier, a woman, and the details about what she slept with, that she had a pet snake and fed it milk, she had a Gurkha dagger over her bed on the wall, and all the little details that there was no way for her to know because nobody knew that those people from that village. So stuff like that, and then there was articles published, and so Stevenson started publishing articles, and so it went from there. And and he published in the Journal of the American Medical Association and all this stuff, and a lot of scholars, have said that there's no way to really explain what he's found. We don't have an explanation.
Yeah, and
So
that.
sorry for the
Oh no
long-winded
no no
answer.
no! No,
That's
I find it super fascinating because that's something I personally have looked into as well, and then you hear stories of kids who do actually go under hypnosis, being able to like talking in different accents and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's very
yeah.
interesting. I always
No,
find
it
that very
is. It's
fascinating.
totally interesting. And then there's been this work with psychiatrists as well. There's a very famous psychiatrist, M. Scott Peck, who's written a couple of books on and he's worked with the Vatican. He's worked with religious padres and ordained exorcists, and he's gone on exorcisms, and there's another psychiatrist, and he was a Harvard grad, and there's another psychiatrist, Gallagher, who's still, I believe he's still alive and practicing at New York Medical and at Columbia, and he has written books as well, and they have found that in certain cases they run out of psychiatric diagnoses, and some of the things that they've seen, they just cannot explain.
Yeah.
They've seen levitation. These are board certified psychiatrists who've gone to medical school and everything, and they have seen some things that they just cannot explain, that they've documented, they've written books about. So it's kind of a fascinating area, and so that kind of melded into this story.
It's very fascinating. So going back to the film itself, the lead role of Adam that Adam Johnson played. Let's talk a little bit about him and what to you made you feel like he was the right role to play that, or he was the right actor to play that lead role.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, man. Look, Adam came in, and my buddy Netu, who's one of the producers on this film. Uh, we had a reading for the movie we're doing next called Creature. We just didn't have the financing for that movie at that time, but he came in to read for the lead role in that movie, and so we did this kind of script reading in my house, and I mean, for a guy to come in and start reading and pick up the character so well, I said, "Oh hell, man, this guy's really the money. I got to work with him." So then I had him in mind, honestly, when I wrote Hypnotica, and then I sent him the script and asked him if he would do it, and he got back to me pretty much right away, and he said, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And so then that really catapulted us forward, and then we made the movie, and he was just an absolute joy to work with, a great guy in every way. Yeah.
And a lot of times on, especially small scale productions, you have to, go with the fly, go with stuff that changes on the daily basis. Was there
Yeah.
anything in the final product that altered from the original vision or your original vision or what was originally scripted?
I'd say a lot of it. We shot it one way, man, and when we were in the editing room, we looked at it and we said, I think it would work better this way. And then Suzanne Spangler was huge, huge in reshaping it in the post as well. And so we took the core of the story and we worked it in a way, and we cut it in a way that was not exactly the way it was in the script at all. And we took for instance, the scene with David, and the patient that shoots himself in the car, that was all supposed to front load the movie, and we didn't like it. It just didn't work. So then we put it in more as a flashback that more informed the character, and of Mason, the psychiatrist, and gave us some, fleshed out why he was feeling a certain way more later in the movie, and we thought it worked better.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
I think given just watching the film, I believe that's it. I think that was the better choice, definitely.
Yeah, thanks, man. Because yeah, like when we put it up front in the film, we found that it was kind of like it wasn't as interesting,
Hmm.
because I think there was less context. We didn't know the psychiatrist at all yet, and so it was like it's like kind of very kind of just out there, generic, and so then it worked much better to put it in more as a flashback later.
Right.
So we cheated that in there.
So given the fact this is just recently dropped on lots of platforms, how has
Yeah.
the overall response been? Has it exceeded what you've expected? Has it been, kind of what you hoped for, or were there certain things
Well,
that people?
yeah, at times it exceeded, and at times it was disappointing because some people, not everybody's going to love everything, but overall, we've been very happy, like really happy, honestly. We won the jury award at the Freak Show in Orlando, which is a huge genre
Mhm.
festival. Adam won Best Actor, so we couldn't be more thrilled there. He actually went out to receive the award. We were in Another Hole in the Head, and it was really, really well received there. So, and then the responses from some of the critics have been really, really good. Um, and I love those critics. I want to thank you, you critics. I love you. Thank you. The critics who didn't like it now.
Right, right. So what do you think is the biggest takeaway from making this movie that you'll take into your next film, Creature? One piece of
What,
advice or something like
that's a
that.
great question. One thing is this, like when you're writing the script and you're putting the movie together in your head, you think it's way more interesting than it really is when you start putting it together in the editing room. And in the editing room, the audience has zero patience. Even when you watch some of the premiere tonight, you can see the comments flying by. People are shitting all over the film and stuff. But then you realize there's only two or three or four of them, and everybody else is watching it. So you got to put it in perspective.
Right.
But in general, that's a principle that does apply, though, because when I wrote the script, I thought there'll be suspense in what's happening because you want to know what's going to happen with this patient. But when you shoot it, and you're actually shooting it, you're saying, that's kind of moving slowly. So we got to punch this up. We got to do something to keep it moving along. And I think that's one of the biggest things I would say I learned here is that, it's very easy to lose people, lose the thread of the story, lose the interest in what's going on, and to find ways to stay a half step ahead of the audience without getting too far ahead of them is tricky. And I think that that's something you just learn by doing and by making films and seeing and getting your ass kicked basically when you get a rough cut. And then people say, man, I was asleep. And you say, oh shit, okay, we got to do something different.
Right.
So I think that's what it is. I'm trying to sum that up a little better than I just put it. But basically, it's like as you're shooting, you got to kind of be able to be more objective and watch it as though you don't know anything about what's happening and see, is it engaging you? Are you expressing what you want to express? Because you have to tell the story and make it interesting, and then whatever subtext and whatever self-expression you have, whatever theories or things that you want to impregnate the film with, then those can come in naturally later. But if you put the cart before the horse, it won't happen.
In our interview we had with you earlier this week, you stated that a few of your favorite horror films were The Witch and Hereditary. What is it about those type of films that you think take them above the normal offerings in the horror genre?
Well, let's start. Yeah, I mean that's a fucking fantastic question, man. I love it. Look, with The Witch, it's it's because The Witch has so much authenticity to it. I think the best films are the ones that are researched heavily and are authentic and real, because then through that material, as you explore that material and as you tell the story, you find truth within it. As you're making the movie, as you're writing it, you find truth within it because you're using truth to tell it. And I think that's ultimately the greatest thing about cinema and storytelling, and having this communal environment, because you're not writing a novel which is more esoteric and it's just you in your head, but it's a communal thing, so you're bringing in a lot of factors, and so a lot of things can inform the story, and the actors bring something to it, and they are creative as well, and then the post-production. So I think that's a big thing, is truth, and being able to use and the witch I think did that really well. Robert Eggers, he researched that time period. He got the dialogue. He
Yep.
got every little piece down, and then he managed to tell a story that you didn't know where it was going and who was it. You know, you felt like the girl, and it was all bullshit, and they were all crazy, and then
Right.
you realize, oh my god. And then at the end, it was like completely blown away. And then he took it one step further, where you saw the scene against the moon, and I mean,
Yeah.
and then it was all really just a fable from that time period. I think it's absolutely brilliant. The guy's a brilliant filmmaker.
I agree.
So that to me is what elevates material. And it's the same with Hereditary. What elevated
Hmm.
the material, what elevated the film, was the authenticity of these characters, that they're real people interacting in a very dysfunctional family. And it's like Carrie. It's the same thing. It's just ultimately it's a really dysfunctional family, right?
Right.
And then you know what I'm saying? And then beyond that, you add these supernatural elements to it, and then it takes it and it blows your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
AT, I want to thank you so much for joining us for this quick little Q&A.
yeah.
And we really hope that we can see more from you in the future here on KOH. And again, thank you so much for bringing
Thank you
Hypnotica to
so
us.
much, man. Pleasure, pleasure. Thank